What I learned in 2 years doing domestic violence advocacy work. These are peculiar, thoughtful observations that someone with an engineering background has. When I was surviving domestic violence at the hands of a woman, I reported the crime and police came to the scene, and I could read between the lines. There was a hesitancy towards moving the case towards a criminal status and sending it to district attorney for prosecution. And I thought, why could this be? And that's why the statute codes came in. I had to show the statutes to the police, educate them, and move the case forward. But this video is not about statutes. It's about the lessons learned here in the last 2 years. And I thought, why is there this friction, this unwillingness for the police when there's overwhelming evidence and the statute codes are there? And it came to me, and I thought about it from the police perspective. I've never seen someone talk about this before, so let me know in the comments what you think. But the police is graded, one of the key metrics, key performance indicators of police is how safe the city that they serve is, right? And to determine how safe a city is, you have to look at the reported crimes. So the more reported crimes, the more it looks like the police is not doing its job. So there may be an inclination for the police to not want to report the crime officially and move it to the prosecutor because it can make them look bad when the metrics are collected by the end of the year when it comes to funding. And I live in Gilbert, supposedly one of the safest cities in Arizona and in the country, in the United States. So I looked at it from that perspective and I thought that was a little odd. And that's one hypothesis. Topic 2. Victim blaming. I think that's a phrase that seems to get thrown around quite a bit in this industry. And I'm the kind of person that I come from a scientific background and I like to question the status quo, question everything. That's science. And when I came into industry, everyone says no victim blaming. Whatever everyone tells you, you have to go with that. And I do understand that. I pray for wisdom and understanding. And I understand where that comes from. But I do question that philosophy a bit because if someone that survived false allegations and accusations, they can completely destroy you. They can go to your workplace, you can lose your job, etc. And it's irreparable reputational damage, character assassination. And imagine when I saw the girl that abused me, she was calling all these domestic violence shelters, pleading like she was in an abusive relationship, and they sent her all these letters after the police took her. I received all these letters like a week later in the mail, and I couldn't believe my eyes. And I thought, everyone that heard her over the phone with the crocodile tears, crying, she was lying the whole time, and they believed her. So it's a little scary that someone can just call any organization, and the organization is instructed to just take their word for it and proceed. And if you've been in the other end of that and the false allegations, comment below. So the approach that I think seems a bit more logical to me is it's okay to believe to a certain degree, but evidence is king, evidence and statute codes. So if you have the evidence that supports statute codes, that makes your testimonial a lot stronger. And false allegations can be very, very disruptive. And they are a form of power and control. They're a form of abuse. So I somewhat question jumping to the victim blaming and just completely believing what anyone says, especially if they're crying. It's something to consider. Topic number 3, power and control. Third topic, power and control inside domestic violence crisis response organizations. We've been very blessed when we started this journey. It feels like we met the right person, the right people, and the right mentors at the right time. Very early on in our journey, we were very fortunate to meet with some wise mentors that have been in this industry for multiple decades. We'll leave them anonymous. We refer to them as they. And they told us there's a lot of power and control inside the industry of domestic violence. I didn't quite know what that meant at the time. But as I've progressed in this journey and I'm learning, I'm a student, I learned that what that means, at least for us, a lot of organizations are already using Statute Finder and it's been game changing for them. They're very grateful. They've given us testimonies. Other organizations, we've had the rather younger advocates use it because they're a little more familiar with AI and they're a little more comfortable. And they would tell me this is game changing for us, it's going to increase the amount of people we can serve, the quality of the service we provide. Then they're running by the manager, and the manager that may be perhaps a little older, the manager will just completely shut it down. And the advocate, I can read between the lines. There seems to be like this power and control that even though we know we can help a lot more people, we want to do this thing this way. But it's just a very interesting situation that I've seen a little bit of a pattern. And I came back to our mentor and I explained them this. And they told me this is the power and control behind the scenes. Sometimes even the managers inside the crisis response, they tend to be a little bit abusive, using the words that they used, with their staff. So that was eye-opening and interesting for me. And I just observe, learn, and adjust. And I can see what the roadblocks are and try to help and teach so some of that skepticism, healthy skepticism, can be addressed. Fourth topic, somewhere along those lines. Sometimes there's the skepticism, the healthy skepticism to adopt AI, but it seems to be a skepticism that comes from rather interesting reasons. So not because any safety concerns or competency, but rather that it will take jobs, right? And some advocates may be hesitant about adopting AI because it could take jobs. And I can understand that. We all need to put food on the table. On the same token, I think we all came, at least speaking for myself, I felt called to the domestic violence industry because I felt a needed to be addressed. And I came here to save souls and save lives. And I put myself second. That goes first. And whatever it takes, we want to do it the right way and save the souls and to save lives. How I make money is not nearly as close as to that calling, that mission. So if I know that something can achieve that mission, I would be open to it. So then I ask myself, are we in it here to make a living, or are we here to change lives and save people? So that's something that I started realizing, that maybe not everybody is in this industry for the same reasons that I'm in it. And I suppose, I'm not sure that's okay, but that's insightful at least. Fifth, the main way that domestic violence seems to be fought on the defensive end by the survivors seems to be with feelings and opinions. And from my experience, feelings and opinions get you absolutely nowhere when it comes to domestic violence. It is no leverage. If anything, if you focus on your feelings and opinions, you lose credibility and things don't get moving. So when I came into the industry, I thought I'm going to do the complete opposite. I'm somewhat of a contrarian. Logically, I like to think. What's the opposite of feelings and opinions? Facts and evidence. And what's facts and evidence? The evidence that you collect, tangible evidence, recordings, photos, screenshots, and statute codes, the letter of the law, the definition. And I fight domestic violence with those two things, which have proven to be wildly successful to those that have adopted that mindset. Sixth topic. I'm not so sure that telling survivors when they call you to immediately plan to leave the situation and flee is the best strategy in all cases. I understand that's the industry standard, but I think that we should consider giving the survivor options. They know they're the abuser more than anyone else. And I'm not so sure that all cases are deadly. I think that an option to consider, which is the option that I recommend to consider, is to see if you can stay in the relationship a little bit longer to document evidence before you leave. I call this documentation before separation. I'll make a separate video on this later. But I think that based on my situation also, you may never get another chance to document the abuse again. And once you leave the relationship, once it ends, these narcissists, they're pathological liars that can convince everyone that the lies are truth. So if you leave this relationship without any evidence at all, they are going to have that leverage at the end of it. So I told myself, almost whatever it takes, I would lock my door at night. She will walk around holding knives in the house. So when I sleep, I would lock my door, barricade it, and I would wait until I had all the evidence before I left the relationship. So those are some of the few thoughts that I have. Comment below if you want a part 2 on this.